It was a cloudy afternoon in early spring, the kind of day where the sky feels heavy with secrets. The cemetery lay silent, save for the soft rustle of wind through leafless trees. 3 small figures stood together, hands clasped tightly. Triplets, barely 8 years old, dressed in black coats 2 sizes too big. Their shoes sank slightly into the damp earth as they stared at the freshly filled grave before them. The name etched on the stone, Amara Linton. Beloved mother. Courageous soul. They had been told their mother had passed suddenly. A rare heart condition. No warning. No goodbye. The hospital visit was a blur. Machines, white sheets, a quiet nurse pressing tissues into small hands. But nothing had prepared them for this moment, standing where goodbye felt final. Where the air smelled of wet soil and sorrow. Ellie, the oldest by 3 minutes, kept a brave face. She believed she had to. For the others. For their mother. Jonah, quieter, held back tears like they were something he'd misplaced. And May, smallest and most tender-hearted, had not let go of her mother's favorite scarf since the day she passed. They knew she was gone. What they didn't know was that this day would mark a beginning as much as it did an end. A man stood at a distance under an umbrella. He was tall, mid-30s, in a tailored coat with eyes that mirrored the storm above, dark and unreadable. He had come alone, no entourage, no family. He watched the children from behind a cluster of gravestones, hidden, like a ghost reluctant to be seen. He had not been to a graveyard since he was a child. Not since he lost his own mother. He wasn't supposed to be here. He had promised himself he wouldn't come. But then the letter had arrived, Amara's lawyer, a will, instructions. And something else. A photograph. 3 children standing outside a modest brick home, arms around each other. Identical in many ways. Each with eyes too familiar to ignore. He had stared at that photo for hours. Now, standing there, watching them grieve a woman he once loved more than he dared admit, he felt time collapse. 8 years vanished. Guilt arrived like a tide, swallowing him whole. A gust of wind caught Ellie's scarf. It blew forward, danced along the grass, then tangled itself at the foot of the stranger. The triplets turned. He picked it up slowly, carefully, like it was sacred. When he looked up, all 3 children were staring at him. Not with fear, not quite. But with a curiosity that cracked something inside him. He stepped forward. I believe this belongs to you, he said, his voice steady but quiet. May reached for the scarf. Their fingers touched. Just for a moment. Who are you? Ellie asked. There was no politeness in her voice. Just a quiet demand, the kind that comes from someone too young to have to be this strong. He hesitated, then took a breath. My name is Gabriel. Jonah tilted his head. Were you a friend of our mom's? Gabriel's eyes flickered. He knelt to their level, umbrella forgotten, rain beginning to dot his shoulders. Yes. A very long time ago I was. But I'm not just a friend. The air seemed to pause. Even the wind stopped. I'm your father. May blinked. That's not funny, she whispered. I wouldn't joke about this, Gabriel said, his voice trembling for the first time. You're lying, Ellie said sharply. She never told us anything about a dad. She said we didn't have one. She wanted to protect you, he said, eyes wet now. There were things. She was scared. I made mistakes. I didn't know about you. Not until recently. Jonah stepped forward. You really didn't know? Gabriel shook his head. I swear to you, if I had, I would have come sooner. I would have. But words failed him. What could he say to undo 8 years? The children stared at him, uncertain, unmoving. Behind them, the grave seemed to rise between past and future, as if daring them to cross from one to the other. A voice broke the silence. You can't just show up now, Ellie said. You don't get to just be our dad because you want to. Gabriel nodded slowly. I know. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to let me try. May tugged on Ellie's sleeve. What if he's telling the truth? Ellie didn't answer. But she didn't pull away. The rain grew steadier, and Gabriel stood. I'll be here. However long it takes. I promise you that. He turned to leave, but before he could take more than a few steps, Jonah called after him. Wait. Gabriel turned. Jonah's voice was quiet, but firm. What was Mom like? When she was with you? Gabriel smiled softly, the kind of smile that held pain and joy stitched tightly together. She laughed more than anyone I've ever known. She used to sing at the top of her lungs when she cooked. She could find a way to make the worst day feel like the beginning of something good. And she was braver than I ever deserved. Jonah nodded slowly. Okay, he said. Then maybe you can come with us. Just for a little while. Ellie's eyes widened, but she said nothing. Gabriel took a step closer. Thank you, he said. That means more than I can say. As the four of them walked slowly away from the grave, May reached out and held Gabriel's hand. Small fingers curled into his palm. And something inside him, something heavy and hollow, began to shift. But shadows lingered. What the triplets didn't know was that Amara had kept more than just Gabriel's identity a secret. There was a journal, locked in a safety deposit box. A letter addressed to them. A name scribbled hastily in the margins. A name that meant danger. A name Gabriel recognized. And as they reached the edge of the cemetery, a black car watched from across the street. Its windows were tinted. Engine running. Someone else had been waiting for this moment too. Inside the car, the engine purred with quiet menace. Behind the tinted glass, a pair of eyes observed every movement. The children's clasped hands, Gabriel's protective stance, the way May glanced up at him with the uncertain awe of someone teetering on the edge of belief. The man in the driver's seat didn't move, didn't blink. He simply watched, a single photograph resting on the dashboard, one that matched the scene unfolding before him. The triplets. Gabriel. And Amara, smiling, though the picture had faded at the edges. Gabriel led the children toward the sidewalk, his umbrella forgotten near the grave. None of them seemed to care that the rain was falling harder now. May clung to his hand, while Jonah walked a step behind, glancing between his sisters and this man who claimed to be their father. Ellie kept her arms crossed, lips tight, her gaze hard. She was trying to protect them, and Gabriel respected that. He knew trust wouldn't come easily. He didn't deserve it yet. I parked just around the corner, he said softly, not wanting to break the fragile silence with anything louder. I thought maybe we could go somewhere dry. Maybe talk. We don't know you, Ellie said. You're right, Gabriel replied. And you don't have to go anywhere with me. I just thought, maybe we could get a hot chocolate or something. Someplace with people. Public. Safe. May looked up at Ellie. Can we? Ellie hesitated, chewing her bottom lip. Jonah stepped closer. Just for a bit. We don't have to stay. Ellie gave a small nod. Someplace with a window. Where I can see the street. Gabriel nodded. Absolutely. They walked the short distance to his car, an older, matte black Volvo. Clean, simple, and unassuming. He opened the back door for them, but Ellie examined the seats, the locks, the windows before allowing May and Jonah to climb in. She sat on the edge, arms crossed, body rigid. A cafe sat nestled between a bookstore and a flower shop 3 blocks away. Gabriel had been there once, years ago, with Amara. Back when life had been gentler. Before his mistakes had carved a canyon between them. The bell over the cafe door jingled as they entered, and the warmth of roasted coffee beans and baked cinnamon wrapped around them. The owner, a middle-aged woman named Carla, gave Gabriel a long, curious look but said nothing. He guided the children to a table near the window, just like Ellie wanted. He ordered them all hot chocolates and a plate of warm buttered toast with strawberry jam. He didn't know their tastes, their habits, their allergies. Anything, and the fact gnawed at him. But when May's eyes lit up at the first sip of hot chocolate, something inside him loosened. They sat in silence for several minutes. Gabriel didn't push. He let them eat. Let them think. Let them feel. Finally, Jonah broke the quiet. Why did you leave? Gabriel set down his cup. I didn't know about you. That's the truth. Your mom and we had a complicated relationship. I left for a while. I thought I was doing the right thing. When I came back, she was gone. Gone where? Ellie asked. Moved, Gabriel said. She didn't want me to find her. I tried. I really did. But she didn't leave a trail. Why would she do that? Jonah asked, frowning. Gabriel looked at them, at their faces, so full of innocence and confusion. Because I wasn't the man she needed me to be. Back then, I worked for people who weren't good. Dangerous people. She was scared. I think she didn't want that life touching you. Ellie stared at him, suspicion hardening her voice. Are you still working for them? Gabriel shook his head. Not for a long time. I walked away. But walking away from people like that isn't easy. What were you doing? Jonah asked. Gabriel hesitated. Security, mostly. Sometimes courier jobs. Sometimes things I'm not proud of. I thought I was doing it for the right reasons, but I was wrong. I hurt people. Not always directly. But I let things happen. Like what? Ellie pressed. I don't think you want the details, Gabriel said quietly. And I don't think you should carry them. Just know this. Your mom left because she was protecting you. From me. From what might follow me. And now I'm here to make sure none of that ever touches you again. Jonah looked at May, who had curled up slightly in her chair, sipping her chocolate like it was a shield. Ellie's jaw clenched, but she didn't respond. Outside the window, the rain slowed. A van pulled up across the street. Nondescript. White. Two men stepped out, lit cigarettes, and stood in the rain like they didn't care about getting wet. Gabriel saw them. His posture didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Old instincts flickered back to life. He recognized one of the men, even from this distance. Gray coat, thick build, tattoo on the neck. Ramos. He hadn't seen him in 5 years. He turned to the kids. Listen. We're going to take a little walk. Out the back door. Just for fun. You remember how your mom used to make everything an adventure? May's eyes brightened slightly. Yeah. She used to say, we're spies now. Gabriel smiled gently. Well, today you're spies again. Ellie frowned. What's going on? Just trust me, he said. Please. Ellie looked uncertain, but she nodded. He left money on the table, grabbed their jackets, and led them to the back hallway near the restrooms. There was a door leading out into a narrow alley behind the cafe. The moment it closed behind them, Gabriel crouched. Okay, he said. We're gonna play a game. I need you to stay close to me. Don't look around. Don't talk. Just hold hands and keep moving. They nodded. Gabriel guided them through the alley, checking every corner before turning it. He moved quickly but carefully, calculating routes, anticipating movement. He used to do this for money. Now he did it to protect something real. At the end of the alley, he ducked them into a stairwell of an old parking garage. He checked his phone. No signal. Of course. He cursed under his breath. Ellie tugged his sleeve. Who are they? People from my past, he said. People your mom warned me about. They don't care about rules. And they don't like it when someone walks away. Are they following you or us? Jonah asked. Gabriel hesitated. Maybe both. They climbed to the second floor. He found an old security booth, unlocked and dusty. Inside was a landline. Somehow, miraculously, it still had a dial tone. He called a number from memory. It rang 5 times. A voice answered. Yeah. It's me, Gabriel said. Silence. Then, Jesus Christ. You're alive. I need a car. Clean. No tags. Now. Where? Gabriel gave the address. The voice sighed. You're in deep again, aren't you? I have kids, Gabriel said. Triplets. Amaras. More silence. Then softer. I'll be there in 20. He hung up. Turned to the kids. We're going to wait here for a little bit. Then we're going somewhere safe. Ellie crossed her arms. Where? Gabriel looked out the window. Someplace no one knows about. Not even them. For 20 minutes, they waited. Gabriel watched the streets from the shadows, saw Ramos and the other man circle the cafe, then head down the block. He'd lost them. For now. A black sedan pulled up quietly to the rear exit of the garage. Gabriel recognized the driver, Reese, a former contact, one of the few people left he trusted. The kids piled in, and the car slid into traffic like a ghost. The ride was quiet. May fell asleep on Jonah's shoulder. Ellie stared out the window, her face unreadable. Gabriel didn't speak. He just watched. Not the road, not the sky, but them. The small signs that they were still kids, still whole, despite everything unraveling around them. The car pulled into a long dirt road, hidden by trees, leading to a cabin surrounded by nothing but woods and mist. Remote. Isolated. A place Gabriel once used as a bolt hole, back when he needed to disappear. Inside, the cabin was cold but clean. Wood floors. One room with bunk beds. A fireplace. A kitchen stocked with canned goods and water jugs. Not much, but it would keep them hidden as the children explored quietly. Gabriel moved to a locked cabinet behind the kitchen. He pulled out a small black case and opened it. Inside, a gun, a phone with no SIM, a USB drive, and an old leather notebook with initials scrawled on the corner, A.L. Amara Linton. He hadn't known she left it here. He opened the journal. Inside were notes, names, maps, documents of a life she'd lived in fear. A network of threats. Mentions of the group he once worked for, the Iron Table. But there was something else. A name that hadn't appeared in any of their databases before. Valen Creed. Underlined. Circled. Marked with a single word. Coming. Gabriel's stomach dropped. He turned a few pages and found a letter, folded delicately. His name written on the front. He opened it. Gabriel. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And you found them. Good. You always were better than you believed. The kids will need you now. But it won't be easy. Creed is real. I spent years trying to keep us hidden from him. He's not part of the Iron Table. He's something worse. Deeper. Older. He's coming for them. Not because of you. Not because of me. But because of what they are. I never got to tell you. I didn't even understand it myself. Not really. But there's something inside them. Something Creed wants. Something they inherited. You'll understand soon. But you have to protect them. Even from the truth. Promise me that, Gabriel. Promise me you'll keep them safe, whatever it takes. Amara. He folded the letter, his hands shaking. Outside, the wind picked up, brushing leaves against the windows. The trees groaned like they knew something was coming. Jonah stepped into the room, rubbing his eyes. Where are we? Safe, Gabriel said, stuffing the journal into his coat. For now. But even as he said it, something in him knew. Safe was a word they wouldn't know for long. Jonah walked to the window and stood there quietly, his silhouette framed against the early evening gloom settling over the forest. The sky had turned a deep gray, the kind of color that swallowed warmth. He stared out at the trees, unmoving. Gabriel watched him, sensing the boy had something to say but didn't know how to begin. After a moment, Jonah asked, "What did Mom mean, in the letter?" Gabriel didn't answer right away. He couldn't. Not yet. He barely understood it himself. She meant that you're important. That someone dangerous is looking for you. And she didn't want that person to ever find you. Jonah turned. But why? Why us? Gabriel ran a hand over his face. He wasn't ready to explain what he barely grasped. The Iron Table was one thing. A syndicate, brutal but familiar. But Valen Creed? That name hadn't crossed his path until now. Even in the dirtiest corners of Gabriel's old life, Creed had been whispered like a myth. And myths were worse than enemies. Myths had roots you couldn't see until they were already wrapped around your throat. You three are special, Gabriel said. In a way that I can't explain. Not yet. Your mom figured it out before I did. She spent years protecting you from Creed, and now that she's gone, it's my job. Jonah nodded slowly, processing it. So we're not safe. Gabriel looked him straight in the eye. No. Not completely. But I'll keep you alive. That I promise. Behind them, the front door creaked. Gabriel was on his feet in an instant, hand instinctively brushing the grip of the pistol under his coat. But it was just Ellie, holding a bundle of wood. I thought we might want a fire, she said, her voice hard. Since we're apparently hiding from a nightmare. Gabriel nodded, relaxing slightly. Good thinking. Ellie walked past him without looking at him, dropping the wood into the small stone hearth. Jonah helped her, and together they started to arrange the logs, mimicking what they'd seen their mother do back home. May appeared soon after, holding a pack of old playing cards. We used to play spy poker, she said. But we never knew the rules. We just made them up. Gabriel knelt by the fire and struck a match. The flame flared, crackled, then caught on the kindling. Warmth began to bloom slowly through the cabin. You want to play? May asked him quietly. Gabriel smiled. You make the rules? She nodded. Then I'll play. They sat around the fire in a small circle, cards in hand. The game made no sense. Points awarded for blinking at the right time, penalties for cards with cats on them, sudden rule changes shouted mid-game, but it didn't matter. It wasn't about the rules. It was about the four of them, sharing something normal in the middle of a storm. Later, after May and Jonah fell asleep on the couch under a heavy quilt, Ellie remained awake, sitting on the floor and watching the flames. Gabriel sat beside her. She didn't look at him when she asked, "Why did you really leave her?" Gabriel took a breath. Because I thought I was saving her. I didn't think I deserved her. I got involved with people I shouldn't have. I wanted to keep her out of it. But the truth is, I was scared. Ellie's jaw tightened. She wasn't. No, Gabriel said, his voice raw. She never was. Ellie leaned her head back against the arm of the couch, her voice quiet. She told me once that secrets keep you safe, but they also make you lonely. Gabriel looked at her, so young, but already carrying the weight of things most adults never did. She was right. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. Somewhere in the woods, an owl called. Then another. Gabriel stood and went to the window. The car Reese had brought was hidden under a camouflage tarp beside the cabin. No movement outside. No tracks in the mud. Still, something gnawed at his gut. A feeling he'd learned never to ignore. He walked outside, just far enough to check the perimeter. The trees whispered with the wind, and the mist was thicker now. As he reached the tree line, he knelt and touched the ground. Something caught his eye, a faint depression in the mud. A footprint. Too large to be his. Too deep to be made by someone passing through casually. Someone had been here. Recently. He returned to the cabin with a forced calm, closing the door behind him. He didn't want to panic the children. He locked it, then moved through the rooms in silence, checking every window, every blind spot. In the bedroom, May stirred, murmuring in her sleep. Gabriel leaned down, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. Don't let the red door open, she whispered. He froze. What? May turned over, still asleep. The red door. Don't let him in. Gabriel stepped back, heart pounding. There had been no mention of a red door in Amara's journal. No reference to dreams. No warning of anything like this. He stepped outside again and dialed the number Reese had used. "Yeah," came the groggy answer. "I need info," Gabriel said. "Fast. On Creed. Not just the standard file. Deep stuff. Historical if you have it. Symbolic. Any mention of a red door." "Red door. Yeah." There was a pause. "I'll call you back." Gabriel hung up and stared out into the forest. The trees seemed closer now, leaning in. Back inside, Ellie was still awake. She stood up as he entered. "You felt it too, didn't you?" she asked. Gabriel looked at her. She continued. "When we got here. Like something's watching." He nodded. "You're not imagining it." She walked over to the small kitchen table and pulled something from her pocket. A small, flat stone. Dark gray, veined with white. "Mom said to keep this with me. Said it was from her grandmother." Gabriel examined it. "I've seen something like this before. Old protection charm. Celtic, maybe older. The veining looks like silver ore. That's rare. She said if I ever felt like the shadows were moving, I should keep it in my left shoe." Gabriel didn't smile. She wasn't just being poetic. Ellie shook her head. "No, she never was." Then the phone rang. Gabriel answered. "Found something," Reese said, his voice different, lower, tense. "The red door, it's an old symbol. Pre-Christian. Tied to something called the 13th gate. It's not just a metaphor. It's a real location. Hidden. Some say it's not a place, but a state of mind. Or a ritual. Creed's name comes up in a few of the older records." Gabriel gripped the phone. "What does Creed want with the kids?" Another pause. "Then, according to the law, the 13th gate needs a key. Not a metal key. A living one. A bloodline. Something passed down." Gabriel looked at the children, now asleep. "You think they're the key?" "I think Creed believes they are." The line went dead. Gabriel sat down hard in the chair by the fire, staring at nothing. He remembered something Amara had once whispered to him in the dark. "My grandmother used to say we came from doorkeepers. That some people are born to guard the threshold between worlds. I always thought it was just a story." Now it didn't feel like one. Jonah stirred, sitting up slowly. "Is it morning yet?" "No," Gabriel said. "Go back to sleep. Everything's okay." It wasn't a lie. Not entirely. Right now they were okay. Right now they were together. And that had to be enough for tonight. Outside, the trees bent ever so slightly in the wind. Somewhere deep in the forest, a sound echoed faintly, a low, humming note, like something ancient stirring in the soil. Something remembering. And far away, in a city buried under fog and silence, Valen Creed stood at a window, staring at a crimson door carved into stone. His fingers brushed the air before it. Waiting. "She found him," he murmured. "And he found them." A woman stood behind him, her face obscured by shadows. "Do we act?" Creed smiled without warmth. "Not yet. Let him believe he can win. Let them believe they're safe. Then, we knock." The wind grew louder that night, whistling through the trees like it carried voices. In the cabin, time slowed. The fire crackled softly, and the children lay asleep, but Gabriel couldn't rest. He stood at the window, his eyes scanning the tree lean, every sound sharpening his pulse. He couldn't stop thinking about what Reese had said, about the 13th gate, the living key, the bloodline. Every instinct told him that Amara had known more than she had time to share. His hands tightened around the leather-bound journal as he opened it again. The pages crinkled under his fingers, still faintly smelling of her. There was a loose page tucked between two others he hadn't noticed before. Faded ink, written hastily. A date in the top right corner. 8 years ago, only a week after the triplets were born. He's growing restless. Creed was always patient, but something changed after the children came. I think he's seen them, through the veil. He won't stop until he has them. I need to get further off the map. No phones. No paper trails. I can't let him find them. Not until they're old enough to decide for themselves. Gabriel's breath caught. Through the veil. He closed the book, heart pounding. The veil wasn't just metaphor. Amara had believed in thresholds, real ones. If Creed had eyes beyond the natural world, then no hiding place was truly safe. The forest, the cabin, it was a delay, not protection. He walked to the back of the cabin, where a loose floorboard beneath the bunk had once served as a hiding spot for weapons. He pried it up and retrieved a small black duffel. Inside were old photos, 2 burner phones, maps with notes scrawled along the borders, coordinates, names, dates. There was also a tiny lockbox, one he didn't remember placing there. He opened it carefully. Inside was a strip of torn fabric, wrapped around something hard. When he unwrapped it, he found a polished medallion, dark silver, engraved with a circular symbol, 12 spokes around a sunburst. But one spoke was longer, etched deeper. The 13th. He turned it over. There were initials. A.L. He hadn't seen this symbol before. It wasn't part of any sigil from his past assignments, nor did it match anything from the Iron Table's catalogue of mystic artifacts. But the moment his skin touched the medallion, a warmth pulsed through his fingers. Not hot. Not painful. Just aware. As if the object knew it had been found again. Gabriel tucked it into his coat pocket, sealing the lockbox again. He made a mental note to call Reese in the morning for help identifying the symbol. But something told him even Reese's resources might come up short this time. Hours passed. Morning came in layers of dull grey light. The rain had stopped, but the world outside still looked soaked in silence. May was the first to wake, her tiny footsteps padding across the wooden floor. She climbed into Gabriel's lap without a word, curling against him with sleepy trust that cut deeper than 1,000 apologies ever could. "You were awake all night," she mumbled. "I was keeping watch." "From what?" Gabriel kissed the top of her head. "Just making sure the forest didn't grow legs and walk in." She giggled softly, then sat up, her eyes narrowing slightly. "I dreamed about the red door again." Gabriel's breath caught. "Can you tell me what you saw?" She rubbed her eyes. It was big, and there was light coming from under it, but not yellow light. It was like stormlight, blue and cold. And there was a man on the other side. He didn't say anything, but he knocked. May nodded 3 times. Then the door opened a little. Gabriel swallowed. "Did he come through?" "No," she said. But something else did. He didn't ask what. He could tell from her face that even she didn't want to remember it clearly. He pulled her closer, shielding her from the rising tension in his chest. He didn't need any more proof. Creed wasn't just a man. He was something older than violence. Older than reason. And he was getting closer. Jonah and Ellie stirred not long after. Gabriel cooked a quick breakfast, canned beans and toast, and they sat in silence, the tension wrapping around them like fog. Ellie watched him carefully, still unsure, still measuring every move he made. "I found something," Gabriel said when they were finished eating. "A symbol your mom left. A kind of key." "Key to what?" Jonah asked. "I don't know yet, but I think it might be part of why Creed is after you." Ellie leaned forward. "What does he want from us?" Gabriel hesitated. "There are places in the world that most people don't believe in. Doors between what we see and what we don't. Your mother's family. I think they were born to guard one of them. Like magic?" May asked, wide-eyed. Gabriel smiled faintly. "Maybe. Or something older than magic. Something that makes magic seem like smoke and mirrors." Jonah frowned. "So if we're the key, Does that mean we can open the door? Gabriel's jaw tightened. That's exactly what we have to make sure doesn't happen. A knock at the door made them all freeze. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Gabriel's hand moved to his pistol. Stay here, he said. He moved to the door in silence, stepping to the side before looking through the peephole. Nothing. No movement. No sound. Another knock. From the back door this time. He turned swiftly, gun raised, and approached the rear exit. Again, nothing. Then he felt it. A sudden pressure behind his eyes, like someone pressing fingers into his skull from the inside. The children screamed behind him. He turned and saw the room flicker, not just in light, but in shape. The walls shimmered. The ceiling bowed. The shadows lengthened, even in the daylight. May was clutching Ellie. Jonah was on his knees, hands over his ears. The medallion in Gabriel's pocket burned hot against his ribs. He grabbed it and pulled it out. The moment it left his coat, the air snapped back to normal. The walls stopped shifting. The shadows stilled. Jonah gasped, Ellie's eyes wide. What was that? She whispered. Gabriel didn't answer. He held the medallion in his hand, the warmth fading now. It had done something, pushed back against whatever force had breached their space. He went to the journal again. This time, he flipped past the pages of maps and notes and into a back section written in a different hand. More careful, older. Maybe Amara's grandmother's. The key awakens in blood. The gate does not open by strength but by resonance. When the veil begins to thin, and the shadows press against the frame, the key must be claimed by choice, not force. 3 parts, 1 lock. If broken, the door remains closed. If united, beware the price. Gabriel read it again, slower. 3 parts, 1 lock. The triplets. Each one of them was a fragment. Separately, the door remained closed. Together, the possibility frightened him more than anything else he had ever faced. And Creed knew. Gabriel looked up at the children. Pack your things. We're leaving. Where? Ellie asked. Someplace not even Creed can follow. There's a man I need to see. He lives off-grid, across the border. He used to work with people like Creed, but he got out. If anyone knows how to stop this, it's him. Is he dangerous? Jonah asked. Gabriel gave a grim smile. Everyone I know is dangerous. But this one owes me his life. He won't hurt you. They packed quickly, efficiently. The children didn't complain. Even Ellie seemed to understand the urgency now. Gabriel made one last call to Reese, asking for coordinates, crossing routes, and a time-stamped drop. Then he burned the journal. Every page. The medallion he kept, strung on a cord around his neck. He didn't trust digital data. Not now. Not with whatever Creed could do. By midday, they were on the road again. The car moved through winding mountain passes and silent stretches of rural highway, dodging cell towers and avoiding cameras. Gabriel took back roads, using maps that hadn't been updated in decades. The children dozed in turns. May leaned against the window, her breath fogging the glass. Jonah scribbled in a notebook Gabriel had given him, drawing things he'd seen in his dreams. Circles, doors, eyes. Ellie stared straight ahead, as though she were trying to see the future. Gabriel's phone buzzed once. A single word message from Reese. He's moving. They were running out of time. By nightfall, they crossed the state line into old reservation land where paved roads turned to gravel and gravel gave way to silence. A single light burned on the distant ridge. Gabriel followed it, winding the car up a narrow trail until they reached a small house carved into the rock itself. A man stood outside, arms folded. His long grey hair hung down his back, and his eyes gleamed like coal under moonlight. Gabriel stepped out. "Ronan," he said. The man nodded. "You brought the storm with you." Gabriel motioned to the kids. "They're the ones. Amara's." Ronan's expression softened. Then we have a chance. He looked at May, then at Jonah, then finally at Ellie, holding her siblings' hands. Come inside, Ronan said. There's much to prepare. The door will try to open soon. And Creed is only the beginning. The inside of Ronan's home felt like a world away from the road they had just driven. It was carved directly into the stone, ancient in its construction yet warm, lit with low firelight and lined with thick tapestries covered in symbols none of the children recognized. Gabriel had been here once before, many years ago, but now it felt different. More alive, as if the walls themselves were aware of their return. The children paused at the threshold, uncertain. May clung to Gabriel's hand while Jonah and Ellie stepped forward together, scanning the room as if expecting something to leap out of the shadows. You are safe here, Ronan said, his voice low and resonant. For now, this place exists between the steps of the world. Creed cannot walk here without being summoned. And I will never summon him. May looked up at him. You know about the red door? Ronan's dark eyes fixed on hers. I've seen it. She nodded as if that were enough, then let go of Gabriel and wandered further inside, curiosity overtaking her fear. Jonah followed, still clutching his notebook. Ellie lingered by the entrance. Gabriel stepped beside her and said softly, He's one of the only people left who's ever faced Creed and lived. Did he win? She asked. Gabriel hesitated. He survived. Ronan led them deeper into the home, where the ceiling arched into a rough dome. The stone was etched with overlapping circles, spirals, and geometric sigils that seemed to shift when you looked at them too long. In the center of the room, a single table stood, round, made of blackened oak, scarred from fire and age. Around it were 4 chairs. He motioned for them to sit. Before I explain what you are, Ronan said, you must understand what he is. Gabriel sat with them, quiet. Ronan leaned forward, lighting a bundle of herbs, and the room filled with a sweet, earthy smoke that slowed the air. Valen Creed is not his true name. It's the one he took after he crossed the threshold the first time. He was born human, just like you. But he sought power not meant for men. He found it behind the 13th gate. He let the words sink in. That gate was never supposed to open, Ronan continued. It was sealed by the 13 keepers of the old world. Not kings. Not sorcerers. Not gods. Just people, chosen by blood, by fate, by something deeper than choice. They were born with an echo inside them, a frequency that resonates with the veil between this world and the other. That resonance was their gift. And their burden. Jonah sat up. And you think we're those people? You're more than that, Ronan said. You're descendants of 2 bloodlines, Amara's and Gabriel's. Gabriel's breath caught. My bloodline. Ronan turned to him. Did you think your darkness had no origin? The things you were drawn to, the violence, the silence, the ability to vanish in plain sight, it was always in your blood. Not cursed, but tuned. The Linton line carries the key. Yours carries the door. Ellie's face went pale. So, together. You are the lock, Ronan said. And Creed knows it. That's why he let you go. He doesn't want to hurt you. He wants you to choose. May whispered. Choose what? To open it. Silence filled the room. Even the fire seemed to shrink, dimming under the weight of the truth. Gabriel leaned forward. What's behind the door? Why? Jonah asked. Because he believes he can control it. Because he wants to become something more than man. Ellie's eyes narrowed. And if the door opens, what happens to us? Ronan shook his head. You won't survive it. Not as you are. He'll use your bond to reshape you. The triplets are rare, a triad key, perfectly resonant. If he brings you together inside the gate, he can become its vessel. And if we don't open it? Ellie asked. Then he tries to break you, one by one. The fire pulsed in the hearth, casting long shadows. Your mother delayed him longer than anyone thought possible, Ronan said. She kept you separate. She trained you without you knowing it. Your games, your stories, your dreams, they were conditioning. And now you're here because it's time for you to know. Jonah whispered, "What if I don't want to be part of it?" Ronan turned to him. "That is your right. The gate cannot open without the consent of the key. Even Creed cannot force it. That's why he's waited. Why he's watching. He's not looking to steal your power. He wants you to give it." May tugged the cord around Gabriel's neck. "This necklace, the circle with the spokes. That's the gate, isn't it?" Ronan nodded. "It's a seal. An anchor." Amara must have found one of the original medallions. There were 13 made. One for each of the keepers. They amplify the resonance, but also protect against it. As long as Gabriel wears it, Creed can't fully reach him. Gabriel looked down at the metal, now cool against his chest. "Then I'll never take it off." Ronan stood. "You'll need more than that." He walked to a shelf and pulled down a thick, leather-bound tome. It was older than anything the children had ever seen, bound in skin, etched with ink that shimmered in the firelight. "This is a guide," Ronan said. "Not a spellbook. Not a prophecy. Just the memories of others who have walked near the gate." He opened it to a page marked with a dried lavender stem. Drawn in ink was a doorway set into stone, and above it a sun with 13 rays. At the base of the page were 3 silhouettes, children, holding hands. "They saw this," Ronan said. "In dreams. Just like May." Ellie frowned. "You said we had a choice. So what are we supposed to do?" "Train," Ronan said. "Learn to suppress the resonance. Learn to resist Creed's influence. And most of all, learn to stay apart, no matter how much he tries to bring you together." Jonah looked worried. "But we're stronger together, right?" "Yes," Ronan said. "But strength is not always safety." They trained over the following days. Ronan taught them how to center their thoughts, how to ground their emotions, how to break eye contact when something foreign tried to enter through a dream. He gave them symbols to trace, stones to carry, chants to whisper when the shadows thickened. Gabriel watched them like a hawk. Every hour, every breath. He had missed 8 years. He wouldn't miss another second. He trained too, sparring with Ronan, revisiting old movements, reawakening the instincts that had gone dormant. On the 4th night, May woke screaming. Gabriel rushed to her, holding her as she sobbed. "I saw the door again," she gasped. It was wide open this time. And there was a man inside. He had no eyes. Just mirrors. And he said, "Tell him the sun is missing its teeth." Gabriel stiffened. He looked at Ronan, who had come into the room barefoot, silent as a ghost. Ronan whispered, "The prophecy." "What prophecy?" "The ancient one," he said. "It was always fragmented. No one understood it. But one line stood out. When the sun loses its teeth, the gate will know hunger." Gabriel whispered, "Then it's starting." Ronan nodded. "He's calling to them, testing their bond, seeing how deep he can reach." Ellie appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. "We have to leave." "Why?" Gabriel asked. "Because we're not alone anymore." Ronan rushed past her and flung open the door. The night was still, the wind sharp, but something had changed. The air smelled wrong. Burnt metal and ash. In the distance, just along the ridge, 13 stones now stood where there had been none before. Monoliths arranged in a perfect circle, each one humming with energy. Ronan turned pale. "He's building the compass." "What is it?" Jonah asked. "A ritual site," Ronan said. "He doesn't need the children to find the gate. He needs them to activate it. The compass tunes the location. He's marked this place." Gabriel turned to the children. "Get your things. We're moving now." "But where can we go?" Ellie asked. Ronan stepped into the firelight. There's one place left. One threshold still untouched. Gabriel narrowed his eyes. Where? Ronan took a breath. Where Amora was born. They packed in silence, each of them moving with a strange, instinctive coordination. No one asked for help. No one argued. It was as if the appearance of the monoliths on the ridge had snapped a thread none of them realized they were holding, one that kept them tethered to the illusion of time, of choice, of safety. Gabriel moved like a soldier, checking weapons, counting rounds, packing supplies. He placed May's favorite scarf in the bag himself and made sure Jonah had his notebook and Ellie her stone. Ronan moved swiftly through his home, retrieving items Gabriel couldn't identify. Bundles of herbs, a cloth-wrapped object that seemed to hum faintly, and a curved dagger carved from bone. Outside, the monoliths stood still, unmoving. Yet their very presence bent the atmosphere like heat on pavement, distorting perception, making the ridge seem closer than it was one moment and impossibly far the next. Where was she born? Ellie finally asked, breaking the quiet. Ronan looked at her. A place called Rathmore. A forgotten settlement, hidden in the wilds of the northern reaches. Long before maps recorded it, it existed. Her grandmother was the last gatekeeper born on sacred soil. Why haven't we gone there already? Gabriel asked. Because once we cross into Rathmore, there's no turning back, Ronan said. The place is a threshold unto itself, neither here nor there. Creed cannot walk into it without opening himself fully. But if he does, he'll be vulnerable. That's our only chance. May looked up from tying her shoes. So, we're going to fight him there? Ronan paused. Not yet. First, you must remember. Remember what? Jonah asked. Who you were before you were born. Gabriel stared at him. What are you talking about? Ronan met his gaze, expression grave. They are the echoes of the original keepers. The gate doesn't choose randomly. It finds its way back to those whose blood already knows the shape of sacrifice. In Rathmore, they will begin to remember. Gabriel opened his mouth to argue, to reject the idea, but then he looked at his children, at the unspoken understanding that sometimes passed between them, at the way May instinctively reached for Ellie's hand when the shadows pressed too close, at the way Jonah always seemed to sketch the truth before any of them could say it out loud. Maybe Ronan was right. Maybe this wasn't just about Creed. Maybe it never had been. They left under moonlight, the car winding its way through craggy mountain roads, past ancient ruins and fields overgrown with silence. As they drove, the terrain grew stranger. The trees thinned, their branches arching overhead like cathedral ceilings. The stars overhead pulsed with impossible clarity, and the wind carried whispers that made no sense, fragments of lullabies and languages they didn't recognize. May pressed her forehead against the glass. It feels like the sky is watching. It is, Ronan said from the front passenger seat. We're near the hollow belt now. The veil grows thin here. Gabriel's hands tightened on the wheel. How much farther? Another hour, Ronan said. If the road lets us through. That wasn't a figure of speech. The road itself began to change. Cracks appearing and vanishing, turns that didn't lead where they should have, a bridge that crossed a river Gabriel could have sworn wasn't there a moment before. But he didn't stop. He just drove. The car hummed with tension, and the medallion against his chest grew warmer the closer they got. Eventually, the road turned to dirt, then stone, then something else entirely. Packed earth laced with faint symbols only visible when the headlights struck them. Then the road simply ended. They had arrived. A clearing opened before them, wide and ringed with monolithic stones far older than the ones Creed had summoned. These were cracked with time, moss-covered, and humming with energy that made Gabriel's teeth ache. At the far edge of the clearing stood an archway made of intertwining branches turned to petrified wood, natural, but impossibly deliberate. The entrance to Rathmore. The children climbed out of the car slowly, each of them drawn to the arch as if pulled by a tether woven into their bones. May reached it first. She didn't hesitate. She stepped through. Jonah followed. Ellie paused, looked back at Gabriel. You'll come too. He nodded. Always. She stepped through. Gabriel moved forward, and Ronan placed a hand on his arm. You must know, Ronan said. Once you cross, you may begin to see things as they truly are. You'll feel everything you've buried, and you won't be able to hide from it. Gabriel stared into the archway. I've been hiding my whole life. Then he stepped through. The world changed instantly. There was no sound, only the rushing silence of deep water, of ancient cathedrals, of moments before a storm breaks. The air smelled like ash and lavender. The sky above was neither day nor night, painted in shifting hues of gold and indigo. And the land itself pulsed, as if alive. The children stood ahead, staring at a single tree in the center of a small hill. It was massive, gnarled, twisted, silver-barked with leaves of burnished copper. From its branches hung ribbons, trinkets, bones, offerings. This is the tree of binding, Ronan said, appearing beside them. The first gatekeepers swore their oath beneath its roots. May knelt, touching the earth. I know this place, she said. From my dreams. Jonah opened his notebook. The page he had drawn days ago, circles, the tree, a door, matched what stood before them now. I think we're supposed to do something here, he said. But I don't know what. You will, Ronan said. When the moment comes. They walked slowly toward the tree. The ground shifted under their feet, sometimes hard, sometimes soft, sometimes not there at all. The deeper they went, the stranger things became. Gabriel saw flickers in the corner of his vision, faces he thought he'd forgotten. His father, his old commanding officer, a child he had once failed to protect. They didn't speak. They just watched. Jonah stumbled and gasped. Are you okay? Gabriel rushed to him. I saw a door, Jonah whispered. But it wasn't red. It was gold. And behind it were people. They were us. May took his hand. I saw them too. They were standing in a circle, holding something. Ellie stepped closer. A fire. May nodded. They're your echoes, Ronan said. Memories of the keepers who lived before. They are watching. And waiting. For what? Ellie asked. For your answer. A rumble rolled through the ground. The sky rippled. And then they heard it. 3 knocks. Not from behind. From within the tree. Jonah took a step back. May held tighter to Gabriel's hand. Ellie squared her shoulders. Ronan spoke calmly. He has found the edge of Rathmore. He cannot enter without your invitation. But he can reach. You must not answer the knock. Not here. Not yet. May trembled. But what if the door opens anyway? Ronan looked toward the horizon. Then the world becomes something else. And we may not survive what follows. Gabriel looked at his children, their eyes wide, their bodies still small, still human. But there was something else inside them now. Not power. Not magic. Memory. Something older than any one of them could grasp, flickering just beneath the surface. He stepped forward and placed a hand on the bark of the tree. Amara, he whispered. If you can hear me, we need you. The wind stirred. The ribbons on the branches fluttered. Then a voice, soft as breath. They already know what I would say. They just haven't remembered it yet. May gasped. Ellie froze. Jonah dropped to his knees. I heard her, Jonah said. She's still here. She never left, Ronan said. She walked deeper into the memory of this place. To wait. Until you came home. Gabriel looked at him. Can we reach her? You can, Ronan said. But only together. Ellie stepped forward. Then let's do it. No, Ronan said, holding out a hand. Not yet. The moment must choose you. If you force it, you open more than just a path to memory. But we don't have time, Gabriel said. Creed's coming. Ronan looked at the horizon, where the sky had begun to darken. Stormlight bled through the clouds. He's already here, Ronan said. He waits beyond the edge. And he's building something. Not just a ritual. Not just a breach. Jonah stood. Then what? A body, Ronan said. He's preparing a vessel. Gabriel's mouth went dry. For what? For the hollow. Ellie clenched her fists. Then we stop him. Ronan met her gaze. If you try now, you'll lose everything. But if you wait, if you remember who you are, then you'll have a chance. One. That's all you get. The sky cracked with distant thunder. The knocking came again, louder this time. Closer. Ronan turned to the children, his expression solemn. It's time to begin the waking. The knocking stopped. In the stillness that followed, the world around them seemed to hold its breath. Time thinned to a whisper, and then, like a shiver through the bones of the land itself, the great tree at the hill's center split open down the middle. A seam of golden light pulsed from within, soft but infinite, and for a moment, everything was silent again. The leaves stopped moving. The air ceased its hum. Even the distant storm seemed to hesitate. And then they heard her, Amara. Her voice, not in words but in feeling, washed over them, warm, powerful, ancient. It wasn't a sound but a remembrance, a call echoing from the deepest part of their blood. The children didn't cry. They didn't speak. They simply stepped forward. May, Jonah, Ellie, together, as if the choice had always been made long before they were born. The golden light enveloped them, not blinding but illuminating. Their eyes glowed with it. So did their hands. And then, in a flash that sparked across the hilltop like lightning, they saw everything. For the first time, he truly saw them, not as the pieces Amara had hidden from him, but as the bridge she had built between worlds. His pain, his absence, his regrets, they meant nothing in the face of what stood before him now. His children were not waiting to be saved. They were the salvation. The golden light faded, but the change remained. The triplets turned to Gabriel, eyes filled with both innocence and ancient knowing. It's time, May said gently. Gabriel nodded, voice breaking. I'm with you. They moved to the edge of the clearing, where the storm now surged across the horizon. A massive silhouette stood at its center, tall, gaunt, cloaked in shadow and flame. Creed. But this was no longer the man Gabriel had once hunted. This was a creature born from ambition and agony, stitched together with stolen memory and warped time. The vessel he'd forged was grotesque, a body that bled smoke and lightning, held together only by the force of his will. He stepped forward. You came. Creed's voice thundered, warped and layered, like a choir out of tune. Good. You've remembered enough to make this easy. May stepped in front of her siblings. You won't open the door. I don't need to, Creed said. You already did. The tree behind them groaned, the split glowing brighter, the air growing dense with possibility. You think this power was meant for balance, Creed sneered. But balance is a lie. Power exists to be used. And you were born to become my gate. Jonah stepped forward. No. We were born to end this. Creed lunged. The storm followed. But the children didn't run. They didn't scream. They raised their hands, 3 voices, 1 resonance, and the air sang with energy. The ancient sigils underfoot ignited. The sky turned white. Time cracked. Gabriel shielded his eyes as wind and light exploded around them. The world twisted, and then stilled. Creed stood frozen, locked mid-motion, his form fracturing. Not by force, but by remembrance. The hollow he had tried to control had turned on him, recognizing not strength but desperation. The power he had stolen recoiled, returning to its source. You reached too far, Ellie whispered. You forgot what the gate was always meant to guard. May raised her hand. Not treasure. Jonah added, not power. All 3 together, memory. Creed screamed, but it was too late. The tree pulsed once, twice, and then released a wave of light that swept outward, erasing the monoliths, the storm, the vessel, everything. A cleansing, not of destruction, but of return. When the light faded, Creed was gone. No ashes. No body. Just silence. The children collapsed to their knees, not in exhaustion, but in peace. They had done it, not by force, not by war, but by knowing who they were. Gabriel ran to them, dropping beside them, pulling all three into his arms. Ronan stood at a distance, tears in his eyes. They did it, he whispered. They restored the seal. What happens now? Gabriel asked, voice trembling. Ronan smiled through the emotion. Now, the world breathes again. Later, as dawn broke across Rathmore, painting the tree in soft gold, Gabriel sat with his children beneath its branches. For the first time in 8 years, he wasn't running. He wasn't searching. He was home. May leaned against his shoulder. Mom would have been proud. Gabriel kissed her hair. She already is. In the sky, 3 stars blinked into view, even in daylight, aligned perfectly above the tree. Jonah looked up. Do you think it's over? Ellie answered for them all. It's not over. It's just beginning. And somewhere, in a place beyond doors, beyond memory, beyond time. Amara smiled. Because the gate was safe. The echoes had returned. And the world was still singing.